There were also robberies, murders of principal men. This was done in pretense indeed for the public welfare, but in reality for the hopes of gain. In other words, all these extremists, assassins, they didn't have the good of the people. They just wanted to enrich themselves. I mean, this is a terrible accusation. Whence arose seditions, and from them murders of men, and which sometimes fell on their own people by the madness of these men. Who's foaming at the mouth here? He's trying to tell us about the origin of this movement after the tax issue, and what does it turn out? He's just fulminating against these people. He's so full of hatred of them. Because primarily they killed a very good friend of his, a man called Jesus ben Gamala, who was killed with another high priest. And I told you a little bit about that, throwing his body outside of the walls without burial as food for jackals. Josephus is very upset about these things. So these people murdered their own men, fell on their own people by the madness of these men towards one another, while their desire was that none of the adverse parties should be left alive. And sometimes on their enemies, a famine also came upon us. You see, the parallel with the little apocalypse is really strong. A lot of these elements are in the little apocalypse that Jesus pronounces in the Synoptic Gospels when he sees the city of Jerusalem for the last time, I think. Reducing us to the last degree of despair, as did also the taking and demolishing of cities. Nay, the sedition at last increased so high that the very temple of God was burned down by the enemy's fire. See, again, we are at fault. We have nothing, only ourselves to blame. But you see, he does admit the Romans burned the temple. At another point in the Jewish war, he kind of said that the Jews burned their own temple. He didn't want to blame the Romans for it. The temple was burned down by their enemies' flames. Such was the consequence of this, and such a change was made that the customs of our fathers were altered, and such a change was made, and the alteration of the customs is refusal to accept gifts and sacrifices on behalf of foreigners, and also finally on behalf of the Roman Emperor, which is, he mentions that repeatedly in the 50s, 60s period. And such a change was made as added a mighty weight towards bringing all to destruction, which these men occasioned by their conspiring together. For Judas and Sadduc, who excited a fourth philosophic sect among us, and had many great followers therein, filled our civil government with tumults at present, and laid the foundation of our future miseries by this system of philosophy with which we were before unacquainted with, concerning which I shall discourse a little, and this rather because he calls it a disease. At one point in Acts, Paul was asked, are you one of these disease carriers infecting the whole Mediterranean? And Paul said, oh no, that's me. Basically asking him if he's one of the messianic agitators. He denies that. A disease which spread thence among the younger sort who were zealous for it, and brought our public to destruction. The Jews had for a great while three sects of philosophy, and then he goes on to describe the three sects of philosophy, but since he's already spent so much time on the zealots, he reduces the essay into a paragraph. Whereas you remember in the Jewish war, he had pages and pages on the essays. But notice, that is the time of the census. That's what launches him into this whole thing. And where does the New Testament, at least according to Luke, begin the birth of Christ? The census. I don't know, say it may just be coincidence. It may have more significance to it than that. Now, there's just one other thing I would like to, I don't even know if I brought it because I don't see it in my bag of drinks here. I don't know what happened. I didn't lose it somewhere. Looks to me like I've misplaced it somewhere, which would be a great disaster for me. Let me read you here Josephus' account of the death of Herod. Okay. In chapter 7, he says, the territory of Archelaus was brought under direct Roman rule. This is the war. And a man of equestrian rank in Rome, Companius, was sent out as procurator with authority from Caesar to inflict the death penalty. In this time, a Galilean named Judas tried to stir the natives to revolt, saying they would be cowards if they submitted to paying taxes to Rome and after serving God alone. You see, only God rules here, except the human masters. And he was a rabbi with a sect of his own, quite unlike any of the others. But he doesn't say anything more about it than that, and has already just described the sects. So that's in 7. But if we go back here to 4 BC, in the time of the death of Herod. Let's see. In the midst of these troubles, 4 BC now, Herod was ill and old, and he thought he was dying, but he didn't die, and he got back, he survived, sort of like Saddam Hussein. In the midst of these troubles, there occurred a popular uprising. You see, all we do is get uprising after uprising after uprising. That's what's missing in the Gospels, the background of unrest. Political and civil unrest, total chaos. This is 4 BC all the way to 70 AD we've been describing here. Where is Jesus going to fit into all this? Yes, the Prince of Peace would fit in great there, if we could put him in there someplace and insert it as a popular leader. As a popular leader, which I think he was. Anyway, at this time there were two, he doesn't call them rabbis, he calls them sophists. Sophist is a Greek philosophical term for people who can make good rhetorical speeches, but my text translates that as rabbis. There were two rabbis in the city, two teachers, two sophists, with a great reputation as exponents of national tradition. What would an exponent of national tradition be? That would be someone who knew the law. The law would be the national custom, the national tradition. One was called Judas, the son of Sephares. They all have Maccabean names. The other was called Mattathias, son of Margallus. So we have Judas, Matthias, no, not Mattathias, Matthias. Well, these are names also that are used among Jesus' apostles too. Judas, Matthias. Matthias is the one who takes the place of the other Judas in the election in Acts. Interestingly enough, Judas, the son of Sephares. Sephora is a town, the biggest town in Galilee. I'm not sure if that was really his father or that was where he came from. He looks suspiciously like Judas the Galilean. How many Judases revolutionaries were there? Except it's around 4 BC instead of 7 AD. Anyway, many young students came to them for instruction in the law. That's like Jesus is portrayed as. In fact, daily they attracted a host of men in their prime. Just like Jesus, right? When they learned that the king, Herod, was succumbing to sickness of body and mind, they dropped a suggestion to their acquaintance that this would be a wonderful chance to strike a blow for God. And Herod had erected a Roman eagle above the entrance to the temple in honor of the Romans. And of course the zealots like bin Laden or others wouldn't like that being there. So here Herod was dying or getting weak and almost dying. It would be a wonderful chance